Hey, Gracebased families. This is Megan Hunt. I'm here co-hosting this podcast for the next 8 episodes with Cody Kimmel, and we're talking about what grace-based parenting looks like in action. We're talking about connection and correcting our kids. I'm a mom of 6 myself. I'm from Ruston, Louisiana, and I'm a first grade teacher, a foster mom, and I'm a practitioner of TBRI, trust-based relational intervention. And all those things kind of help me to be able to figure out what parenting really looks like in times where kids are not obeying, we're frustrated, we're overwhelmed. What does grace-based families really look like in action? So if you identify with me in any of those ways, you need to listen to these episodes because they're going to give you a lot of hope and a lot of practical tools for parenting your kids with grace.
Welcome back to the Gracebased podcast. I'm Cody, and I'm here with Megan Hunt, and we've been talking about just how we can practically cultivate connection with our kids, how we can merge this idea of the reality of how God, in His grace, treats us with some of the science that backs up a lot of that stuff, and outlining different ways that we connect through play, by attuning ourselves to their emotional needs and helping them regulate, by building scaffolding around them to help them succeed. And I've really, really loved our conversation because it I think lays a foundation, right, for what we have to do as parents in order to help our kids succeed.
Yeah.
And what I'm excited about in this next conversation we're going to have is that we're kind of getting into the second part of parenting that is the harder part, oftentimes, because let's face it, kids don't always do what they're supposed to do, or what you want them to do, or what you need them to do. Like I've said this before, kids are really bad at being adults, and if we're wanting to get them to the place where they can be adult, at some point in time, we're going to have to correct them. Mm-hmm. And so today we're going to be talking about how we can at least be proactive in correcting them and maybe mitigate some of the power struggles that we have, mitigate some of the kind of blow-ups and discipline that may be well-intended, but oftentimes ineffective. So let's kind of talk about it. And really the way you like to start with this is the idea of giving voice in the midst of correction. So tell me, what does that mean? What does it mean to give voice to kids?
Like you've talked about, the heartbeat of grace-filled parenting really is connection with our kids. And when we connect with someone, we're saying to them, you matter. I see you and I hear you and you're important. And so when we're connecting with our children, giving them voice means what you say matters. And I hear you because you are valuable and precious to me. And that's reflecting the heart of God, right? That our children are valuable and precious to God. So when we hear their voice and we hear what they have to say, we are telling them how important and precious they are. And so giving voice to our children simply means that we are seeing them as people and we're listening to what they need and what they want. It doesn't mean that we're always giving them what they want.
Right.
And there's a very fine line there that a lot of times parents, when we talk about kind of proactive strategies, they're like, wait a minute. I don't want to give voice. I don't want to give choice because I want to make sure that I'm in charge.
Right.
And I think what we're going to talk about today really is the balance of power that we have in parenting. And that, in maybe a traditional parenting structure, we have parents who have all of the power and kids have no power, right? That was kind of like an old school mindset of like, kids are going to do exactly what I tell them to do, and you have no voice. You don't do anything except for what I say.
Yeah.
Like in a permissive kind of parenting strategy, it would be like the kids have all the power. Right. And the parents are like, well, whatever you
want to do,
I don't know, it's fine.
Do your way. Yeah.
Right. But the kind of parenting strategy and power kind of sharing that is ideal really allows parents and children to have appropriate levels of power. And so that means that parents choose when is a good time to give their children power and voice and some say-so in what happens in their life. Parents are still in control. They're the authority, but they're choosing how to share that with children in a way that children know that they're valued and loved and seen and heard, and children don't try to grasp for power in inappropriate ways. Yeah. So a lot of times the conflicts that I have in my parenting is, we call them power struggles, right? Yeah. It is I want to be in charge. No, I want to be in charge
Yeah.
between my child and I. But when I choose to share power with them, it's giving them appropriate control over some things so that I can maintain control of the things that are important.
Right.
So giving voice to our children simply means noticing what they need and inviting them to share with us what they want and need.
Mhm.
And that's something that I know your dad has talked a lot about.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
the opportunity to be candid and
Yes.
vulnerable.
Yes.
And so this goes right in line with that idea.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things my dad has written about and that we've talked about even on our earlier episodes of the podcast is this idea of the freedom to be candid, where, and I love that you point out the fact that in some ways there very much so is a power dynamic where parents do have significantly more power than kids. Whereas if kids are going to have power within the family structure, it is a power given
That's right.
to them by the parents.
That's right.
And the freedom to be candid is essentially saying you have the power to even speak hard things into my life. One of the challenges that kids can have is they're being parented by imperfect people who do not do the right things all the time. And whereas we as parents oftentimes feel like I'd never hesitate to point out something that they're doing wrong. I don't have any fear of consequences for doing something like that. Kids don't always feel that power. And kids don't always, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't. Kids should feel empowered to be able to say that stuff to them. And this is that idea that there is, I loved your use of the term appropriate power. Because also there's a range, by the time they're 17, almost 18, they should be making most of the decisions for their life in their life. And if you've protected them from those choices up until that point, they're really going to struggle in adulthood.
Or if we've given our children no voice in their own life about some of the things that they want to do or don't want to do, then they kind of crave that control.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we see during the teenage years, kids that have not been shared, had a little bit of appropriate power voice given to them when they were younger, will often really grasp for it in ways that are really undesirable to parents, right?
Oh, yeah.
These are sometimes when we have parents or kids that experience rebellious years.
Yeah.
And I think that as we intentionally choose to give kids choice and voice in their life, that it really reduces the likelihood that kids will be grabbing for tons of power as they get older.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said it earlier. It shows them that they matter, that you care about who they are, what they want, what they think.
That's right.
And almost it communicates respect.
Yes, it
shows
does.
I respect you.
That's right. And it's okay that your ideas might be different than mine. One area in our family's life that we noticed the value of giving voice is with our oldest son, who was adopted from China when he was 14. So when he came to us, we realized how much voice we wanted to give him that he did not have before. So he did not know if he liked something or didn't like something.
Yeah.
He had never had any experience with making choices or having his voice be important at all. And so we noticed at first he did not know how to do it.
Yeah.
And we'd say, what do you want to do? He's like, oh, he would freeze. I don't know.
Yeah.
Even, do you like this or do you not like this? I don't know. And so we had to practice helping him to understand you have a voice and we want to hear it.
Yeah.
So for some of our kids, they really want to tell us they want to use their voice a lot. But for others of our kids, we have to invite that to them.
Yeah.
So for some of our kids, it might be just okay, letting go a little bit.
Yeah.
And saying yes, please do tell me what you want or what you prefer. But for other kids, we have to invite it. And we have to say, I want to hear from you, and actually teach them, I want to hear from you, and it's okay. I can wait and learn. With our oldest, we really did have to say, well, we'll figure it out together. You don't know if you like this food. Okay, well, let's figure that out. That's okay.
Why don't we try it? Yeah.
And it's okay if you like it or don't like it. He was very worried to tell us that he didn't like cheese. In China, they don't really eat cheese. I think it's sad. But
that is sad.
He
Cheese
didn't
is
want
the
to
best.
tell us that he didn't like cheese because he was worried that wouldn't be okay. And so this speaks also to the freedom to be different, that your voice can be different than than mine.
Yeah.
So, and another kind of component of this is offering choices to our kids. And this really is one of my favorite things to talk about because it has been life-changing for me as a parent. Part of offering to hear somebody's voice is to give them the opportunity to make a choice. Now, this does not mean that we just are like, whatever you want to do, you choose.
Right.
It goes back to that idea that parents are sharing appropriate amounts of power with their kids.
Yeah.
So we're giving our kids choices that we're okay with both of the options.
Yeah.
It does not matter to us. So it might be something like, do you want the blue popsicle or the red popsicle? I do not care which popsicle you choose. I'm not going to say, do you want a popsicle or ice cream if I don't have ice cream?
Right.
Obviously, that would be a bad example because one of them isn't an option.
Yeah.
We also wouldn't say, do you want a popsicle or do you want to go to timeout?
Yeah.
That's a non-choice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a threat.
Yeah.
So that's not an opportunity. That's not an example of giving a choice. But when we give a choice to kids, it again says, you matter. I want to hear from you. And it shares power with them.
Yeah. Well, I love this example. So especially with, I think, strong-willed kids. I was a strong-willed kid. I am a strong-willed person. My wife is a bit strong-willed. And so it's not a surprise that we both have we have strong-willed children. And this was game-changing for us as well when we realized that so much of the power struggles that we would oftentimes get into with strong-willed kids, what they're really wanting is some level of choice, some level of power. They don't want all the power. They might think they want all the power. They might be saying at that point they want all the power, but they really just want some power. Our 7-year-old, my youngest, she is strong-willed. And she really... We were habitually getting into a power struggle where, we would finish dinner or she wouldn't like a certain food, so she didn't eat enough. We're playing outside in summertimes here. It's, it's light till like 10 o'clock at night. And so there's almost always some type of second dinner. And, we would be like, well, you can have that, that, and that. And she would refuse any of the things that we were offering. And it was just this repetitive pattern that we would find ourselves in, and we were just sick of it. And so I don't remember if it was my wife or me. We were just like, okay, choose 3 things, anything here. You tell us 3 things that you would be open to eating, and we'll tell you which one of those.
Yeah. Narrow it down.
We're okay with.
I love that.
And it was so interesting. Like it changed on a
instantly,
like 180
That's
for her.
fascinating.
And she actually articulated, she's like, I like this so much better.
So why do you think that is? Why do you think that was a game changer for her?
Because I think for her, it wasn't about the food. It was about the choice, and I think in the end, she wanted to have some say. Yeah. And because what was funny is the things we were offering to her are things that we know she would want to
like
eat.
all of them. Yeah.
I know that she would want it. But she was also saying I just want candy. We're like, we're not giving candy.
That's not
I don't
a
even
choice.
know where you get candy.
Yeah.
I don't know
That's
why
funny.
you have candy in the first place. And I think for her, because the really funny thing is I think what she ended up choosing was something that we had already offered her in advance. And for her, it was not about the food.
It was different when she chose it.
Yeah, it was different when she chose it. And I think it was one of those things she's our 4th, so we should have known better.
Every kid
lived
is different.
This life.
Yeah.
But it really is amazing because for them, it was just I think in the end, she didn't feel respected in the way that we were doing that. And she's 7. She is fully capable of knowing enough foods that she likes that we have available in our home to choose that. Yeah. And that to me is an appropriate.
Yeah. Well, and I think you did a couple things that maybe you didn't even know that you did that were really good. So the first thing is that I know I'm just going to point them out to you and celebrate your wins with you. So the first thing is you really chose the right time to do that, right?
Yeah.
You were right there with a power struggle. And we can talk about that was a perfect time to use choice, but we can talk about even long before you get to that dinner power struggle, how using choices can really help. But that was the perfect timing for that. And also, I think you really let go of some control of things that really you decided quick what was important to you and what wasn't. So you could have made the decision and it would have been okay to be like, you could do this now or later. That's
Yeah.
always a good choice.
Yeah.
That works for me. Do you want to do this now or later? But what you did was say, like, it's okay. You know what? It's not about that she eats this thing.
Yeah.
We're okay with this or this. You actually have to release some of your control in order to share it. And I think that's something that it's not natural.
No,
it's because
it's really hard.
In our minds, especially if we have multiple children, sometimes we're thinking, everyone else did this. We're all going to do this.
Yep.
And our parenting philosophy, I think, has to really, really hone in on what is important and why am I asking you to do this? Totally. And a lot of times it's for their good, right? She is going to be hungry later. I know it.
Yep.
And she's going to be in the middle of the night hungry, and this is for her own good. But you really focused on, I want her to eat something, and I don't want to lose my connection with her.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens so many times, that when we're power struggling is that we lose that connection to our kids, and there becomes a fracture in this relationship that can really, really put a deep wedge in our relationship with our kids. And that's the opposite of what we want to do.
Right.
So if we can use choices proactively, even like you used it right in the moment perfectly, but I think there's a lot of opportunities for us if we can think ahead, think right now about some things that our kids power struggle with and decide if it's important or not.
Yeah.
And for me, if I'm being honest with you, a lot of things are actually really important to me.
Yeah.
I'm a high control person. I hate it. But things really matter to me. Like, for example, what my kids look like when we go into public. I really want them to look nice. We live in the South. It's important to me that they look good. But what that can look like sometimes is, oh no, you're wearing this outfit with this bow, with this shoes. Well, that is a prime opportunity for a power struggle. When you have something in your mind and you're not budging on it. So I learned earlier in my parenting, okay, I'm going to have to share some power.
Yep.
So for me, church is the one time I want you to wear this very one outfit. But there are all the other times free game. So we have baskets of shoes. Like, okay, these are your church shoes. Mama wants you to wear those on Sunday for 1 hour. That's it, the end. But all the other times, you can choose any shoes in that basket. Now, I did have a child that asked, could I wear one shoe of one kind and one shoe of another kind? And I was like, oh, it hurts me. And I'm like, at home, yes.
Yeah.
So giving some, finding your
some
own
power.
comfort zones of like, this is okay. And then once you start to give choices to kids, it becomes so exhilarating because you see that benefit. And we can set up choices in our home that are always choices that kids know. Like my kids know I can choose any shoes in that shoe basket. It doesn't matter. I can wear any pajamas at night. They don't have to match. I can do a lot of things. But for our kids that kind of tend to power struggle with us, tend to be our more spirited kids, or kids that crave control a little more. And our kids even that come from hard places that have not had control, like my son who was raised in an orphanage, we have to intentionally give them choices to show them that they have power.
That they can have some power.
That they already do. Sometimes our kids have the power, but they don't realize it. And so a lot of times I will ask and give choices. I like make up choices for things. So I might say, if one of my children says like, can I have some water? I might say, sure.
Yeah.
Do you want a water bottle or a plastic cup?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, plastic cup. Great. Do you want the red one or the blue one? Oh, I'll take the blue one. Okay. Would you like ice or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You want ice? Great. Is cold water fine, or is the sink?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want the fridge water. Okay, great. Here you go. Would you like a straw? No. Okay. That seems like a lot of choices all in a row. But what I was doing for that one kid, knowing this kid later, is probably going to power struggle me. So I'm looking, I just gave you 8 choices in a row.
Yep.
That hurt me 0. It cost me nothing.
Yeah.
And I was able to give some power to him. And it's become it's almost like a joke in our house that I like choice people to death. That they're like, whoa, that's a lot of choices.
I didn't think I had this many opinions.
That's right. Do you want to sit here or here?
Yeah.
Would you like a big fork or a little fork? It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we can give choices to our kids about.
Yeah.
And by telling them that we're giving them the choice, it's actually alerting them that they have power when they might not even know that they did.
Yeah. No, I love that. And one of the things you mentioned, even within that, I think that's worth pointing out, is there are ways to maintain some levels of control while still giving them power by, I guess, kind of preceding their choices a little bit. So like if you're worried about giving your kids choices about what they eat, for example, like snack time can be a classic example where if you have a bunch of food that you don't want them eating for snacks, but they want to have choices and you're limiting all that stuff. Another way of doing that is just make sure all snacks are things that you're comfortable with, that you're okay with. And then you can say, I don't care.
Yeah. Within this and this and this.
Yeah. It's almost like we can, as parents, particularly as younger kids, you can kind of create these sandboxes, like essentially like their shoe basket's a great example. Like, these are your shoes. I'm comfortable with you wearing any of these shoes, except for, Sunday for an hour.
Sunday for 1 hour, you wear these ones.
But these
otherwise,
ones, and I'm comfortable with it. And that gives you some level of control. So you still have some say in it because you're thinking through all these different factors that they're not thinking through from that standpoint, but they still have some choices. And so I think even like that idea of like giving them sandboxes, and then as they get older, they get
and I think of it too like menus. Like I think of a menu. So and you can actually write things down if you want to. We think about it with food in our house. I have one of my children really struggles with food with because he was a food deprived baby, like really, really struggles with food and wants a lot of food all the time. So in my pantry, I have containers that are our yes containers. Yeah. Like these are the snack. This is the yes. Anything over here is no. Yeah. Like, right, you can't have the Nutella. It's over here in the no. But these are the snack baskets, and all these things are yes. Yeah. And giving choices happens with like selecting something. That's one type of choice. Yeah. But another kind of choice that we can do is like when somebody is doing something.
I love that you mentioned, time management. So let's talk a little bit about that.
So if I'm saying to my kids, like, it's time for us to unload the dishes. Like that's not usually super popular.
Right.
And a lot of times I might be like, oh, I really don't want to. And then I could give a choice and I could say, well, you know what? It's fine with me if you want to do this right now, or if you want to go work on homework first and then come back and do it. Like which one of those things do you want to do? Now or later is a good choice. And we use a timer for that. Like, and then I let them set the timer. And then I might give another choice. Like if they're like, okay, I want to do my homework and then I want to come back, or I'd like to do it later. I'd say, okay, would you like to do it in 3 minutes or 5 minutes? I don't say like later, fine. I really set the parameters, but I let them choose. But it isn't like, how many minutes would you like? I might say, well, do you want 3 minutes or 5 minutes? They're going to choose 5. Say, okay, go ahead and set your timer. And when the timer comes back, you're going to come back and do the dishes. And they're like, yeah. And that was an easy way because it doesn't matter to me. Sometimes I can't do that with everything. If kids are like, I don't want to do it now, but it's like, oh, hey, I'm so sorry. We've got to go to baseball practice in a few minutes.
Has to happen
so it's going to have to be right now. You can invent choices about almost anything if you need to. Would you like to put your left shoe on or your right shoe on? Would you like to sit in the left seat or the right seat? Do you want to put the top of your pajamas on first or the bottom of your pajamas on first? It is, so which do you want to do first, now or later, is another really effective strategy. And another one I would say is, do you want to do it by yourself or do you want me to go with you? Do you want help? Because sometimes some of my kids' resistance to doing something is because they don't know how or they don't feel comfortable. And by drilling down and saying, do you want to do it by yourself or do you want my help? And sometimes my kids will come up with a third choice, which is kind of an extension of giving choice and voice, which is asking for a compromise. So asking for a compromise is just simply saying, I'm going to ask for a third choice. So in your example with your 7-year-old, you gave a lot of opportunity, but maybe she was like, actually, would it be okay if I had carrots, this fourth option? And then you and your wife could have said like, actually,
that's fine. That works.
That works for me. But if it didn't work for you, you could say, oh, I'm so sorry. I couldn't do that compromise. My kids ask for compromises all the time with TV. And I say like, hey, it's time for bed. And they will say, this is how we structure it in our home, is that they're not like, but I want. Like for me, that's not the start of a good ask for another choice. I always have them say, yes, but, or yes, ma'am. We live in the South. Yes, ma'am, but. So if I say something like, hey, it's time to turn off Netflix and it's time to get ready for bed, they can say something like, yes, ma'am, but we just have 3 minutes left. Would it be okay if we finish these 3 minutes and then we came? Well, for me, that's reasonable. That works for me. But like I said, if we're heading out the door to go to baseball, I could say, oh, hey, I'm so sorry. We really do have to run. Maybe you can watch
finish
it.
That later.
Right. Maybe we can finish it later. To me, it's treating our kids, like we would treat our friends or other
Yes.
adults,
Yes.
right? We would never say to another adult, like, hey, can I finish this up real quick? We'd never be like, no, the time
No,
is now.
sorry. Yeah.
But we often treat our kids
Yeah.
with that kind of rigidity. And I think by allowing them the freedom to kind of interact with us in a little bit more of a candid fashion, it really shows them that they're important and allows us to interact with them in a way that's going to set us up for, like you said, later when we're going to have to kind of hold their feet to the fire to doing something they may not want to do, or asking them to stop doing something that they do want to do.
Yeah. What I love about the idea of choice too, and you kind of alluded to this in how you're talking about it, is it also helps them grow and learn to the point where at some point in time they are going to have to make these choices. You are not going to be there to set parameters. You are not going to be there to help make decisions for them. One of the things that we'll do a lot of times, my kids will wake up, and especially right now it's the summertime, so they're like, we just want to do screen time. And we have, rules around screen time about how long they can do it. It's age appropriate, all that stuff like that. But they wake up like that's the first thing they want to do. And one of the things that we'll do is, instead of saying, well, from 9 o'clock to 9:30, we're doing this chore. From this time to this time, we're doing this thing. One of the things we like to do is say, this is when screen time is going to happen. We look at our day, like this is the time that makes the most sense and stuff like that. These are all the things that need to get done beforehand. I want you to play outside for this, for a little bit. We need to get a few of these chores done, do all that stuff. Between now and then, I do not care when this happens. I do not care, like all of that stuff. You can make the choice. You can knock all of the stuff out really quickly and be ready for it. And you can wait to the last minute. You can spread it out. That's fine. If you need some help making some of those choices, especially for some of the younger kids that just want to do that, I'm happy to help suggest a framework for that. But ultimately, it's like this: if you want this, that's great. This is when it can happen. Just know that it won't happen if these other things haven't been done. And you make the choice of when that's going to happen.
Yeah, giving some kids some freedom in that.
And that also helps them feel like, okay, I still have some say in this.
Yeah.
It helps them manage their time better. Like there's also a training element to it, that choice is almost necessary, because at some point in time, kids are going to have to make choices.
Well, and this kind of goes back to also, we talked in an earlier episode about the 4 healthy skills of secure adults. And one of them was negotiating for their own needs and giving and receiving care and being their autonomous self. I think about negotiating for your needs as you're making choices for yourself.
Yeah.
So deciding when I can or can't, what do I want, what do I need, gives kids that, it sets them up for developing a secure attachment. Because as you're right, as they move into their life, they're going to need to have the ability to make choices and to sometimes ask for a choice when it isn't given to them in a respectful way.
Yes.
Some of the best things I think we can give our kids are the words to ask for a choice, maybe if it isn't given. Going back to like the popsicle, like, well, if I'm like, hey, y'all want some popsicles? And they're like, yeah. And then one of my kids might say like, hey, would it be okay if I had an ice cream sandwich instead? Yeah. Well, that just the fact that he would ask that question shows me that we've got a great connection because he feels the freedom to ask for something that wasn't offered. He's asking for a compromise. Yeah. And if I have an ice cream sandwich, I can say, sure.
Why not?
But you know what? Sometimes I might not be able to honor that choice because let's say we don't have enough for everyone to have. Right. Or we're saving it for something else later. I think just opening that door up and allowing them the freedom to ask. Yeah. And then as the adult, me still holding on to the power. That's where sharing control and giving choices to our kids, it could, without boundaries, really slip into a lot of permissiveness.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask that. So, because I think the fear, if I'm asking the question of like, why is it that parents would struggle with something like this, or why would I struggle with this? Because ultimately, like, the outcomes are all things that we want. We want our kids to grow up and have the confidence. We want to have trust. We want to have connection. The challenge is, I think, that there is a fear of even becoming too permissive, or just in general, like we lose control in general for it. So maybe frame what is the difference between, like, what would be permissiveness versus what's giving voice? And,
Sure.
and how are those different?
Well, I think that one of the primary things we have to really tease out is that we're talking about giving choice with things that don't relate to morality or sin or character at all.
Mhm.
So we're not going to give choices for our kids to do something that is not good for them.
Right.
When we're talking about giving choices, we're talking about giving choices about like non-sin issues. These
Yeah.
are things that don't matter, like how our kids wear their hair, or
Yeah.
what kind of shoes they put on their feet, or whether they do math homework or reading homework first. These
Yeah.
things don't matter.
Yeah.
We're not giving choices about, do you want to do your homework, or do you not want to do your
Yeah.
homework?
Would you like to cheat on your test or study for your test?
Right.
Yeah.
We're not giving
Yeah.
options about that. And so in that way, we're really holding the line about what's important for
Yeah.
us as parents. And we're only going to let go of the things that are not
Yeah.
important to us. And there are some things we have to decide each individually about what is important to us.
Mm.
And those are not the things that we're going to share control with. So if we were going to share control with everything, it might lead to
Yeah.
permissiveness, because we would then be saying nothing is that important.
Right.
And then we really would be depriving our kids of the leadership that God has called us to, right?
Oh,
We're
yeah.
called to lead our kids and to help guide them
Yeah.
in righteousness and in character development and all of the things that they need to be a successful adult. And if we are not really holding the line on some of those things, we could slip into really not doing the role that God's called us to.
Right.
So I think we have to kind of decide which things we're going to share control over, which things that we won't. And then I think a lot of times for me as a mom, the reason I don't share control is because I am afraid of how it's going to impact me and my image. If
Yeah.
I'm honest with you, some of the reasons that I wouldn't share control is because I want my kids to be a great reflection of us as a family, of
Yeah.
me as a mom. I want them to be perceived as nice and good and
Yeah.
smart and polite. And so sometimes I fear, okay, if I share control, then
Yeah.
they won't be those things. And I can think, literally just the other day, I had to be so intentional. My kids
Yeah.
we were going to a Dude Perfect concert.
Yes.
And my kids wanted to wear some things that I'm like,
Oh, I do not
I
want to be out in
don't.
public with you
I
guys. in
really
this.
don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you want to put your hair back? You know, I've got middle school girls. And so I'm like, don't you think your hair would be really cute in a braid?
Yeah.
She's like, no, I like it like this. I'm like,
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But I had to realize and decide in that moment, which is more important, her having control of her own hair,
Yeah.
or me having a cute picture with a kid with the hair pushed back. And you
Yeah.
know what? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, I can say giving choices to my children about things that really are not important allows me to hold them tightly to the things that I really
Exactly.
do think
Yeah.
matters. Going back to the concept of relational equity, I'm trying to build some relational equity with my kids because I know that down the line, there's going to be something that I'm going to insist that they do or don't do for their own good, because
that they're not going to like.
Yeah. And I don't want it for all my answers leading up to that to be like, no, no, no,
Yep.
no. I don't want them to think mom and dad are just critical and nothing I do is right.
Yeah.
I want them to believe deep in their soul and know that they are loved and cherished for exactly who they are, and that God is pointing them in a direction that is good for them, and that I want them to be able to follow me there. And so I can do that by letting go of what my daughter's hair looks like at the Dude Perfect concert and saying, you are great. Your hair in this doesn't matter. But when she speaks sharply to her sibling at the Dude Perfect concert, that's something that I can really speak into. And then I don't feel like I'm always on guard, parenting, peppering my kids with criticism.
Yeah.
I can I feel like as a parent, I can then relax and rest. And I realize that my kids, yes, they are a reflection of me, but I want them to be a reflection of me as a grace giver.
Right.
And so that's where my heart is in giving choices.
No,
and
I love that.
compromises.
You know, I mean, a few things stand out about that. First off, I think being overly controlling, not only is it ineffective, not only is it all the stuff and all the reasons we did, as a parent, it's exhausting. And I think that's worth saying, like, if we're going to make everything a battle, and if we're going to try to control every aspect of our kids, and if we're going to make the choice of like, this is how you're going to wear your hair this way, and you're going to do this, like, at some point in time, I'm going to get worn out. Like I'm going to wear myself down to where the point, like I'm not like, I would get to the point where like, now I don't care about anything because I'm so tired
Well,
of
that's how
caring
it
about
can
everything.
that's right, that's how it can
And
slip into that
yeah,
permissiveness, I
yeah.
think. Yeah.
And so what I love is what it is, and you said this, how by focusing on what does matter and saying like, these are the things that we're not going to compromise on. These are the things that, yes, because of your age or because of our family, because of all this stuff, this is how it's going to happen. And we're not going to step out of line with that. By deciding those early, it really helps you let go of those things that are not in line with that. And I think the other thing that helps you do is it helps protect against the permissiveness that can actually fuel a lot of insecurity in kids. And you mentioned this as you were talking about this, that the danger of going too far and giving too many choices is that we relinquish kind of the grace that we can give our kids by exercising our wisdom, exercising our perspective to keep them from harm in some ways, and to help give them some type of framework for this is how you can exist in a safe way in this world.
Right. How scary would it be to be a kid and to be like, I'm in charge of my own life. There's
Yeah.
no one else is going to lead me except for me.
Yeah.
I think that actually reduces their confidence because they're
100%.
realizing
Yeah.
I'm all alone. Nobody is going to help and guide me and lead me in this. So
Yeah.
I think giving choices and giving voice to our kids, offering compromises is a way to hear them and to
Yeah.
offer them grace and also to build that connection that we'll desperately need as we move forward in correcting them later on.
Hey, this is Joe from Guatemala. Gracebased makes free resources for parents thanks to the generosity of listeners like me. To join in the work of transforming generations of families, go to gracebased.com/join.